Class 2 for today, for your sequencing Suki question. Your sequencing Suki question has been written into your work pack, so you need to solve that in your pack today, not in my video. Let's carry on reading Matilda. And that is precisely what she did. Having got the address from the school records, Miss Honey set out to walk from her own home to the Wormwood's house shortly after 9. She found the house in a pleasant street where each smallish building was separated from its neighbours by a bit of garden. It was a modern brick house that could not have been cheap to buy, and the name on the gate said Cosy Nook. Nosy Cook might have been better, Miss Honey thought. She was given to playing with words in that way. She walked up the path and rang the bell, and while she stood waiting, she could hear the television blaring inside. The door was opened by a small, ratty-looking man with a thin, ratty-looking moustache, who was wearing a sports coat that had an orange and red stripe in the material. "Yes," he said, peering out at Miss Honey. "If you're selling raffle tickets, I don't want any." "I'm not," Miss Honey said, "and please forgive me for butting in on you like this. I'm Matilda's teacher at school, and it's really important that I have a word with you and your wife." "Got into trouble already, has she?" Mr. Wormwood said, blocking the doorway. "Well, she's your responsibility from now on, and you'll have to deal with her." No, she's no trouble at all," Miss Honey said. "I've come actually with good news about her. Quite startling news, Mr. Wormwood. Do you think I might come in for a few minutes and talk to you about Matilda?" "We're right in the middle of watching one of our favourite programmes," Mr. Wormwood said. "This is most inconvenient. Why don't you come back some other time?" Miss Honey began to lose patience. "Mr. Wormwood," she said, "if you think some rotten TV programme is more important than your daughter's future, you ought not to be a parent. Why don't you switch that darn thing off and listen to me?" That shook Mr. Wormwood. He was not used to being spoken to in this way. He peered carefully at the slim, frail woman who stood so resolutely out on the porch. "Oh, very well then," he snapped. "Come on in, and let's get it over with." Miss Honey stepped briskly inside. "Mrs. Wormwood is not going to thank you for this," the man said as he led her into the sitting room, where a large, platinum-blonde woman was gazing rapturously at the TV screen. "Who is it?" the woman said, looking around. "Some school teacher," Mr. Wormwood said. "She said she's got to talk to us about Matilda." He crossed to the TV set and turned down the sound, but he then left the picture up on the screen. "Don't do that, Harry," Mrs. Wormwood cried. "Willard is just about to propose to Angelica." "You can still watch it while we're talking," Mr. Wormwood said. "This is Matilda's teacher. She says she's got some sort of news to give us." "My name is Jennifer Honey," Miss Honey said. "How do you do, Mrs. Wormwood?" Mrs. Wormwood glared at her and said, "What's the trouble then?" Nobody invited Miss Honey to sit down, so she chose a chair and sat down anyway. "This," she said, "was your daughter's first day at school." "We know that," Mrs. Wormwood said, rallying about missing her programme. "Is that all you came to tell us?" Miss Honey stared hard into the other woman's wet grey eyes, and she allowed the silence to hang there in the air until Mrs. Wormwood became very uncomfortable. "Do you wish me to explain why I came?" she said. "Get on with it then," Mrs. Wormwood said. "I'm sure you know," Miss Honey said, "that children in the bottom class at school aren't expected to be able to read, or spell, or juggle with numbers when they first arrive. 5-year-olds can't really do that, but Matilda can do it all. And if I'm to believe her—" "I wouldn't," Mrs. Wormwood said. She was still really ratty at losing the sound on the TV. "Was she lying then," Miss Honey said, "when she told me that nobody taught her to multiply or to read? Did either of you teach her?" "Teach her what?" Mr. Wormwood said. To read books," Miss Honey said. "Perhaps you did teach her. Perhaps she was lying. Perhaps you have shelves full of books all over the house. I wouldn't know. Perhaps you're both great readers." "Of course we read," Mr. Wormwood said. "Don't be so daft. I read the autocar and the motor from cover to cover every week." "This child has already read an astonishing number of books," Miss Honey said. "I was simply trying to find out if she came from a family that loved good literature." "We don't hold with book reading," Mr. Wormwood said. "You can't make a living from sitting on your fanny and reading storybooks. We don't keep them in the house." "I see," Miss Honey said. "Well, all I came to tell you was that Matilda has a brilliant mind, but I expect that you knew that already."